Every Thursday, my 4 friends and I have a trivia night at a local restaurant. We all recently graduated, and this weekly tradition helps us stay connected despite our new adult lives. We gather at Benny's, sitting at the same booth each time, and tackle 5 rounds of trivia, each with 5 questions. We usually drink, laugh, answer the questions, and most weeks either win or at least come in second. This routine has been in place for a few months until Henry texted the group chat, asking if we'd ever heard of Lucy's Bar. I immediately Googled it, but nothing came up except suggestions for other bars starting with an L. I replied, asking where it was, and Henry responded that it was on Fairmont Road. He mentioned he'd received a flyer advertising trivia there on Thursdays and suggested we try a new place. I wasn't thrilled. Change is hard for me, especially when it comes to our trivia night tradition. Before I could express my hesitation, Alice chimed in, saying she'd be open to trying a new spot since it gets boring winning all the time at Benny's. Jenny agreed, which left just Morgan and me. I felt the need to respond before he did. I didn't want to give Gary, our favorite bartender, a heart attack by skipping Benny's for a week. But Morgan finally spoke up, suggesting there was no harm in trying Lucy's for 1 week. If the trivia there wasn't fun, at least we could say we tried something new. The next night, I drove slowly down Fairmont Road, scanning the buildings for any sign of Lucy's Bar. Even though we don't live in a small town, I've been around long enough to know the area well. I'd never heard of this bar, so I figured it must be new. After parking, I wandered down the sidewalk until I reached the last building. I texted the group for help locating the bar, and someone told me it was around the side of the bank. Following their directions, I turned the corner and spotted a bright neon sign pointing down some steps. No wonder I'd missed it before. I descended the stairs and found my friends already seated at a table. The bar looked pretty typical. One bartender behind the counter and a mix of tables, high tops, and booths. There weren't many patrons, just a few small groups scattered around. I slid into the booth next to Henry and said, "I can't believe I didn't know this place existed." "I didn't either until I got the flyer," he replied with a shrug. "I didn't know of any other places that hosted trivia. This could be fun. I think we have a good chance of winning." Alice chimed in, "We're definitely the biggest group here." While we waited for our appetizers and drinks, I took a closer look at the other tables. There were 2 couples at separate tables, a trio of friends, and another group of 4 seated in a corner. When our food arrived, I noticed the bartender. "Are you Lucy, the owner?" I asked. She smiled and winked at me. She looked to be in her 40s, sporting the brightest red lipstick I'd ever seen. "We'll get the trivia started in just a minute," she said as she headed into the kitchen. Moments later, she returned with a stack of cards and took a seat on one of the bar stools. "So, what does the winning team get?" I asked. "I'm not entirely sure," Henry admitted. "The flyer only mentioned the location and time." "All right, let's get started. You'll find paper and pencils on your tables. After each question, you'll write down your answer and bring it to me," Lucy explained. The format was similar to what we were used to, with 5 rounds of questions, but instead of waiting until the end of each round to hear the answers, Lucy would read them right after each question. The first round was general knowledge, covering things like the year a famous product was released and the author of a well-known American novel. The second round focused on sports, followed by a geography round. Then Lucy asked the third question, "Where can you find Hale?" My friends and I exchanged puzzled looks, surprised by the question. "Where can you find Hale?" Morgan asked, clearly as confused as the rest of us. Lucy continued to smile at us, and Jenny asked, "What are we supposed to say, under the earth?" Alice shrugged. "I'm good with geography," she replied. Henry held up the piece of paper for Lucy, who read it and grinned. After the last group submitted their answer, Lucy prepared to give us the response. "Where would you find Hale?" "Well, you'd hop in your car and drive to Michigan, where you'd find the tiny unincorporated town of Misery," she said with a laugh. Everyone at the tables chuckled, and the questions started to make more sense. The next 2 questions were standard geography queries. Lucy noted each group's standings, and my group was in first place, but only by a couple of points. As we entered the 4th round, Lucy clapped and announced, "Name this 2005 thriller that Keanu Reeves starred in." Everyone turned to Henry, who whispered, "Constantine," and Jenny wrote it down. She had the neatest handwriting and was tasked with recording our answers. After everyone submitted their papers, Lucy confirmed that Constantine was correct. Next came a more personal question. Who do you least like in your group? I glanced at my friends, then back at Lucy, unsure if she was serious. Isn't that a bit awkward? Morgan said. Yeah, I'm not writing anything down, Jenny added. Lucy explained that if we didn't submit a real answer, we wouldn't get a point. We sat in uncomfortable silence, waiting to see if anyone would approach her with their papers. When nobody did, Lucy laughed and said, "Well, you all get a pass on that one. But moving forward, if you don't turn in a real answer, you'll lose points." The next question was, "Who is the most sensible person in your group?" Alice shrugged. Still weird, but I guess this isn't a mean question to answer. I said, "I'd probably say Jenny." Everyone nodded in agreement, and Jenny wrote her own name down before handing it to Lucy. "Great. Now you can earn a point," Lucy said. Other groups slowly turned in their papers, and once everyone was settled again, Lucy asked, "Who in your group would you sacrifice if you had no choice?" An uneasy silence filled the bar. "I think I've had enough of these questions," Morgan stated. The rest of us nodded in agreement, starting to pull out cash to pay our bill early. "I'm worried no one can leave until trivia is over," Lucy said, her voice surprisingly sincere. "I don't think you can really stop us," said a man from a couple at a high-top table as he put on his jacket. He and his partner grabbed their things and headed up the stairs. We heard the door struggle against their attempts to open it, followed by frustrated curses. The man rushed back down, shouting, "The door's locked." Lucy remained calm. "I told you, nobody can leave until trivia is over. Please return to your table so we can continue." "We should be allowed to leave if we want," Morgan challenged. We all stood awkwardly, trying to figure out what to do. "The rules are the rules. Once trivia starts, you have to play through," Lucy insisted. "I strongly recommend you continue participating because the first-place group wins a great prize." "You can't keep us locked in here," a man from another group interjected. "There's no other way out of the bar," Lucy replied, and the murmurs around the tables turned into a panic. "All I ask is that you finish trivia, that's all." We exchanged glances, and Alice groaned in frustration. "Looks like we just have to endure it and finish." "We're already on the 4th round, and we only have about 6 questions left," Henry added, feeling defeated. The couple that had tried to leave seemed to come to the same conclusion and returned to their table. "You have 1 minute to submit your answer for the last question. If you fail to turn in a paper with a real answer, you'll be docked a point," Lucy told us. I whispered to my friends, "We should just write a random name and turn that in." Jenny nodded and quickly jotted something down before handing it to Lucy. After a minute, only 3 other groups had submitted their answers. Lucy surveyed the papers and counted the points. "Unfortunately, none of you earned points for this round. Some of you failed to submit an answer, and those who did chose not to name a member of your group, so you all lose a point." "What? How does she know that?" I murmured, and everyone stared at me in disbelief. The next question was the last in this round. "What is the worst sin you've ever committed?" Lucy explained that since there are multiple people in each group, she expected 1 answer from each person. "Your points will still count toward your total, but you can earn extra points if everyone answers honestly." We sat there stunned. "Do we try to leave again?" Jenny asked. "I wouldn't," Lucy interjected, her red lips curling into a wide smile. "Just finish it out. There's only 1 round left. Your group is in the lead, and it's in your best interest to keep it that way." "Why do you keep saying that?" "What does winning even get us?" a girl from one of the tables asked. "If I were you, I'd try to take that first-place spot," Lucy replied. The girls from that table ignored her and tried to head for the stairs. We heard them pushing against the door, but it remained stubbornly locked, and they returned, dejected. "Well, somehow she knows if we're lying, so we have to give honest answers," Alice pointed out. "Seriously, that's a tough question," Morgan replied. "This lady is crazy. But we all need to turn in our own answers. We didn't want to look at each other's responses, but I agreed. I think we should just answer truthfully. Henry thought for a moment. I just want to get out of here. We needed to submit our responses. I considered what my worst sin might be. I had cheated on my partner in high school and regretted it for a long time. We weren't married or anything, but I wrote infidelity on my paper and turned it in. Lucy took my paper and, after reading it, winked at me. I returned to the table, and once everyone had reluctantly turned in their answers, the room fell into an eerie silence as Lucy examined the papers and recorded the scores. She rattled off the rankings of each group based on points. Our group still held the lead. We've come to the final category, Lucy announced. First question, what is your greatest fear? It wasn't a fun question, but it wasn't as bad as the sacrifice one. The rest of the round continued with odd questions like, who do you hate the most in your life? If you had to kill someone, how would you do it? And which circle of hell from Dante's Inferno would you be sent to? We wrapped up with the final question, will you come back to trivia at Lucy's? My answer was a simple no. After the last group turned in their answers for the final question, I exhaled, not realizing I had been holding my breath. The same guy who had tried to leave earlier stood up again. Can we leave now? Trivia isn't over. I haven't announced the winners yet, Lucy replied, not looking up from her score sheet. It doesn't matter to me who won, we just want to leave, he insisted. Well, the winners get to leave first, she said, recording the rankings again. The couples ended up last. The first threesome took third place, the second threesome came in second, and my group was announced as the winners. Congratulations, Lucy beamed at us. You get to leave first. The second place group will choose 3 people to leave, and the third place group will pick one. Everyone gathering their things froze. Forget that, we're leaving, one girl from the last place team shouted. Lucy stood firm. No, was all she said. You can't stop us, the other girl yelled, and both rushed toward the stairs. The bartender, who had been quietly cleaning glasses, stepped to the foot of the stairs, blocking their path. Let us through, the first girl demanded. The bartender silently lifted his coat, revealing a gun tucked into his belt. The girls screamed and hurried back to their table, sending everyone into a panic. Calm down, Lucy shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. The first place group will leave first. Second and third place groups, you have 2 minutes to decide who stays and who goes, or you'll all remain here. Guys, let's get the hell out of here, I whispered, and we all rushed toward the stairs. The man stepped aside to let us through, and we scrambled up. I reached the door first, holding my breath as I pushed it open. Fortunately, it creaked open easily. We stumbled into the cool night air, backing away from the staircase. We need to call the police, right? Alice asked, already dialing on her phone. Yeah, Morgan replied, still watching the staircase. What just happened? Jenny murmured, staring at the ground. What did that even mean? The second and third groups had to pick who got to leave. But no one answered her. Moments later, 3 others emerged from the staircase and came over to us. We left Adam in there, one of the girls said, tears streaming down her face. Please, tell me you called for help. We did, Alice reassured her. The police are on their way. We all kept our eyes on the doorway, hoping someone would come up from that hellish bar. But nobody did. Silence took over as we waited. Then, suddenly, smoke started creeping up from the staircase. Hey, I think there's a fire, Henry yelled. He and I rushed toward the stairs, quickly descending and trying to pull on the door, but it wouldn't budge. One of the guys from the other group joined us and we all tried to kick the door open. We could hear pounding on the other side and faint cries from the people trapped inside. There's got to be a way to get this door open, I said, covering my nose and mouth with my shirt. The cries grew louder, more desperate. There's nothing here we can use to break the door down, Henry said helplessly. We should get away from the smoke, another guy added, looking frantic. My friend is in there. She said we had to leave someone behind or we'd all have to stay. Adam told us to go and get help, and I promised we'd come back for him, he said, his voice breaking. Help should be here soon, I assured him, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. The smell of burning flesh began to fill the air, and we all reluctantly retreated back up the steps. I couldn't bring myself to look at the devastated faces of those who had left their friends down there. After a few minutes, we heard sirens getting closer. Should we go out to the street? They might not know we're back here, Jenny suggested. We agreed and followed her around the building to the main street. The members of the other group rushed to the police car, pleading that their friend was trapped inside and needed help. Realizing the severity of the situation, the officers followed us around to the back of the building and down the stairs, but something was different. The neon sign that marked the bar was gone, and weeds and plants were now covering the railing around the stairs. "Is this where you were?" one of the officers asked skeptically. "Yes," one of the girls cried. "We were down there, playing trivia." The woman running it was acting strange, then wouldn't let our friend leave. "Others are still trapped down there too." The officers descended the steps while we waited anxiously at the top. "This doesn't look like a bar to me," one of them called up. I went down to see for myself. He was right. The doorway opened into what looked like an old basement. No bar, no tables or chairs, no sign of life. The floor was just dirt, and the space was completely empty. "Is this some kind of joke?" an officer asked. "No, sir, we were just down here," I insisted. "There were other groups with us, and they got trapped inside." I smelled smoke, and we tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. The officer clearly didn't believe me. And who could blame him? I'd have trouble believing it myself if an entire bar had seemingly disappeared. After taking our individual statements, the officers gathered us together. "I don't know what's going on here, but all your stories match up," one said. "I can tell you that nothing's been down there for decades, let alone a bar. We'll keep an eye out for your missing friend and check for any reports of someone going missing in this area." I barely remember getting home that night. The next few days were a blur. Every Thursday, I drive to the spot where we had that trivia night, only to find that it remains an old, abandoned basement. My hope is that when Lucy's bar reappears, I'll be there to warn anyone thinking about going in for a night of fun. And my advice to you, if you ever find yourself at a trivia night in a strange, unfamiliar place, make sure you win.